Welcome to the Project Bring Me Life podcast, talking about the spiritual awakening, metaphysics, and holistic health with artists, musicians, guides, writers, healers, and supporters. So please join us. Wake up and shine on.
Well, welcome everybody. Thanks for waking up and shining on for tonight's podcast with us tonight.
Oh yes, this is a great episode. So we are talking about creating a new culture, and we talk with Mattrick Holbert about a lot of things. He talks about, type 0 civilization, going to a type 1 civilization, and also he had a ego death experience when he was 15 that really opened him up to spirituality, philosophical ideas. He started looking into spiritual teachers like Bruce Lee.
Yeah, I think it's just, he explains what ego death is very beautifully, so I'm glad to have someone who has such fluent explanation of what he wants to get out to the world. So it's definitely a good episode. It's got a lot of useful information. A lot of big words as well.
A lot of big words. That's great. So when he talks about type 0 civilization, that's sort of the civilization that we're living in right now, which is run off of fossil fuels, and type 1 civilization, which is what we can move into. It's basically like moving into the Tesla energy, free energy, Buckminster Fuller, stuff like that. And so within this podcast, he goes over some of the ways that we can do that. Like he calls it a pentivium, which is very interesting. You just have to hear it. You just have to hear it from him, because I can't explain it.
Yep, it's pretty awesome. It's a lot of information. So stay tuned, shine on, and share it when you're finished listening.
Yep. Enjoy the interview. Thanks, everybody.
WOMP Cosmic Carnival is a 2-day masquerade block party in Detroit, Michigan, celebrating our oneness with each other and the entire universe, showcasing electronic dance music, bands, hip-hop, workshops, and more. Music by Ascendant. Zach and What Army.
That could bring you back to sanity. Empathic but emphatically, I plan to see you mastering the art of your existence so that everyone can benefit.
Spaceship Earth. Yogi Magic. And more. Visit thecosmiccarnival.com for the full lineup and to purchase your tickets today.
Okay, and welcome to the show, Mattrick. Could you please tell everybody a little bit about yourself, your background, what projects are you working on right now?
Okay, my background is in the humanities. I've studied them autodidactically. Autodidactically means outside of the education system. I've self-taught myself about the humanities for about 10 years, and I have been on sort of a spiritual path for about that same amount of time. It started primarily for me with an ego death experience that I had when I was about 15, 16 years old, that led me to question the nature of reality and why we exist the way we do in our society and culture. And those questions led me to investigate different philosophers and spiritual teachers, and those different perspectives have come together in me to conceptualize an alternative paradigm that I believe has the potential to create in our time the conditions that would manifest a level 1 civilization, which we can talk about, I guess, in this interview.
Yeah, definitely. Before we did that, I was just curious. You said ego death experience. Could you get into this experience? Talk a little bit about what happened?
Sure. This was an experience that I had. It was with my two brothers that they had sort of, they were smoking weed in the basement. They were smoking cannabis in the basement at my mom's house. when we were, kids, and wanting to be one of the big kids, I guess, sort of took a rather large dose, and I ended up almost passing out outside under the deck, and then I went to my room after I was sort of roused up by my brother, and I decided to try to sort of pass out, basically, but that didn't happen. I ended up putting on some music, and what happened was I ended up having a kind of trip, which I had no experience with. I didn't know what that was. And it led me to an experience where I thought I was dead. I thought I had actually basically, I went down the rabbit hole. I mean, there's no other way to explain it. I ended up seeing fractal, sort of telescopic, kind of kaleidoscopic imagery. And I felt like I was being downloaded, or that information was being uploaded into my mind, kind of, in a way. And that I was also experiencing like my whole life in sort of reverse and in different ways. And I ended up losing myself in this experience to the point where I had basically forgotten who and where and what I was. And I had to sort of reconstruct myself with memories that I had from, days past. And the next day, I just remember looking at my own hand and just asking myself, like, what am I? What is this? And it was just this profound cleansing of my mental palette, because originally, before this, I was just a class clown, kind of, not really taking things seriously. And then thereafter, I started to question reality itself and our society. I mean, I was always sort of a skeptical, kind of atheistic sort of perspective, but this definitely changed that for me and made my perspective a lot more curious and a lot more maybe open to different perspectives. I was still critical-minded, but more open-minded as well.
Yeah, wow. And you said that this happened when you were 15 years old?
Yeah, around that time. It's kind of hard to remember exactly when this happened. It was either like 14, 15 years old, I would imagine.
Yeah. That was a great description of like an ego death experience. I feel like a lot of people have those even when they're just living their daily lives. They'll have that moment where they completely detach from the world they are and they start downloading this information.
It's definitely something that can happen with it can happen in such a way that like you don't really realize it or recognize it at the time. It has to be sort of like a Godsmack. You have to, for it to really stick, it has to be something where it's profound. You have to sort of encounter and almost be terrified. You know what I mean? It's something where you can get inklings of it. There's maybe this kind of a lingering sense of like, what the hell is going on? What am I doing? What is this? But if you don't have like, a sense of awe, it may not stick.
Yeah.
Yeah,
definitely. And how old are you right now?
I'm 26.
26. Okay. So this was about 11, 12 years ago that happened.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice.
Wow. And you said that after you sort of lost your self identity and started questioning, what your body was, what maybe a human was, and
it was. Yeah, I mean, it was sort of also the questioning of like what consciousness is. How am I perceiving this? Because if we're a mechanical sort of biological machine, what explains consciousness really?
Yeah.
And this is something that I was always sort of interested in, and I went into psychology relatively early on in my high school experience. But I was also fascinated. I started off being fascinated by physics. And then I started being fascinated by psychology, and then I moved to philosophy and spirituality, and it's just evolved constantly, really, over the course of my life.
Yeah, and you said that you started looking for different philosophers and different spiritual teachers. What were some of the first teachers and philosophers that you came across, and what did you learn from them?
The first one really was Bruce Lee, who then led me to Jiddu Krishnamurti. I was always interested in martial arts, just as a thing. I think mostly because of our culture a little bit, but I was fascinated by Jiddu Krishnamurti after I found out about him from a biography about Bruce Lee. That I was blown away because his main philosophy was there is no path to truth. Truth is a pathless land. You have to discover it for yourself, and that really spoke to me because I was always sort of skeptical of the Western religions and of the institutions that they basically represent, and or that represent them. And so I ended up studying some of his work. I read a book called Think on These Things by him, and that led me to really open my mind to a lot of things, but also be critical of other things that I was, a little bit more. I was already sort of critical in the first place, but it expanded my awareness of the nature of reality beyond just the sort of superficial qualities of our existence. For instance, one of the things he says is like, you have to first become sacred in yourself to then encounter what is truly the most sacred. And that was something that sort of opened my mind to the idea of like, what is sacred, And the other thing that he said was, is this serious? Are you going to take life seriously, or are you going to take it, without any seriousness at all? Is this serious? Not to answer the question, just asking the question. And that's what a lot of the different philosophers that I really appreciate ask. They don't try to get you to answer the question. They ask you to just ask the question. And asking the question in and of itself is sort of a powerful thing.
Yeah. Wow, that's really beautiful. I'm curious to know, because you seem like a very smart person, very
Sure.
you do a lot of philosophy and things like that. But throughout this sort of awakening that you're having, and it led you to spirituality, do you remember what sort of emotions that were going through you at that time?
Well, I mean, I can tell you one of the pivotal moments in my life was I watched a documentary called Zeitgeist. And at the end of this movie, or the documentary, I had an explosion of empathetic emotion that caused me to cry because I realized that I had to do something. At the end of the movie, the last segment is basically about how the world is being directed and turned into a world dictatorship by the elite, the money masters of the world, and this caused me to seriously sort of man up, I guess you could say, and start to think of how I could try to solve this, because I felt uniquely capable of doing this, given the fact that I've studied a lot of philosophy, spirituality, and that I was gifted with just the ability to study these different kind of things in a different way, because I have this kind of spiritual, philosophical perspective that a lot of people in our culture are reluctant to even entertain. So it was something that I became devoted to spiritually, philosophically, and everything else. And that was one of the most serious, like, emotional outbursts that I had during this time. Other times I felt serious compassion for just people that it's always sort of been a growing thing to like have empathy for people. And I think that that's something that we're kind of bred out of in our culture, is to be more selfish and to be more rooted in our own egotistical, narcissistic desires. And so I gradually became more sort of compassionate and empathetic, and feeling empathy for people who are homeless, or that are just being somebody who's very interested in psychology. I'm really interested and really sort of I feel compassionate for people who are mentally disabled and like the handicapped, and people who are schizophrenic, and people who have a lot of the symptoms of being in a sick society as well. People who are narcissistic and all that kind of stuff. And I feel compassion for them, and I want to essentially try to help them to overcome their culturally induced mental illness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I definitely agree with what you said about the homeless people. I spent a good amount of time sleeping on the streets with them when I was in San Francisco, and you know it's very interesting. And you know they are really great people, and they have a lot of love, and it's crazy out there on the street because they seem more like a family than some of the families in houses, and it's very interesting. You were talking about the zeitgeist, and it made you cry because you wanted to do something. What sort of actions did you take after watching that movie?
Well, I started thinking of, like, you know, what kind of society do we want to have instead of the one that we have currently? Because obviously the system is not working in terms of creating a good life for people. It doesn't create the conditions that would make people more satisfied. It's not egalitarian. It doesn't have any of the elements of a sane society. And those elements are talked about in a book by Eric Fromm called The Sane Society. And I didn't read this book until much later in my life, but I knew intuitively, essentially, what those kind of elements would be. It's, you know, love, compassion, the conditions for growth, psychologically, spiritually, and those things are absent in our current culture. They're stifled, if anything. And the best way to go about creating them is to have an egalitarian, essentially cooperative culture that's rooted in wisdom instead of consumerism, and that has the potential for really elevating every human being to their potential, rather than elevating a very select few to essentially dominance, not even their true full potential, but just dominance. And it's an ancient thing. It's something that's existed for thousands of years. Hierarchy has existed for a long time, but it's something that I think we need to invert the hierarchy. We need to sort of turn it upside down. And then I've also had a lot of experience with, like, studying education, and so it's like, if you just understand psychology, there are certain conditions that will self-actualize people. And if you put those conditions into the whole society and the whole makeup of our systems, it's possible to have a more perfect union. You know, it just seemed intuitively correct to me to have these kind of conditions. And so developing that as a concept has been sort of my project for the past, since around 2009 or so. And I came up with I actually wrote something in 2009 called the World Citizen Constitution, just as kind of like to get it out on paper kind of idea. And that idea has sort of developed over time to be more specific and have a lot more intricacy to it. And I'm actually writing a book right now where that's kind of the subject of the book, is describing this alternative paradigm. Yeah,
wow. And so I would like to get into the Type 0 and Type 1 civilization that we were talking about earlier. Is this something that you talk about in your book that you're writing?
Yeah, I call it a planetary organism because the idea that the planet is a machine that we have to work is something that has been popularized by a lot of scientists and philosophers over the past century. And the Gaia model of the idea that it's a planetary organism is much more realistic, I think, in terms of the existential reality that we're living on a planet that is alive. It's not something that you could dissect and put back together and it would function just as though a machine would. Mm-hmm. It's something that it is alive in its own sort of way, kind of as a primitive sort of zygote almost. We haven't really created the actual organism yet. We haven't created the level 1 civilization, but it is sort of in its fetile stage. It's developing in utero at this moment in our own consciousness. Potentially it could be born, or if we don't have the sensibility that manifests it as like the 100 monkey effect, if not enough of us get together and realize that that's what's taking place, that this is a planetary organism that's emerging, it could potentially be stillborn, and we could end up having a global government that is top-down approach, hierarchical, patriarchy, the same boss, taking over, and it could end up being a global dictatorship. It's not certain that this is taking place. It's a potential. Mm-hmm. We have the potential to create a level 1 civilization, but it's still possible for us to also have it'll still be a level 1 civilization technically, but it will be a dictatorship. There's two paths we can go down to get to this level 1 civilization. The two roads that we can take are basically to have a communitarian-based system versus a totalitarian sort of dictatorship system, and that'll be from a banking-oriented perspective. That it'll be the World Bank, the IMF, and so forth that'll be guiding our evolution into this world civilization, versus us really taking over as as the people uprising in a certain way, in a nonviolent sort of way, and having their power be administered in a participatory, democratic system globally, mm-hmm. versus these sort of top-down, really corporatocracy-based system. And that's where the bulk of it is heading, is in the monetary system being the sort of the tyrant of the planet. Mm-hmm. And so we are in a sort of perilous situation right now, where there is the potential for us to have a global democracy legitimately, and then there is also the potential for it to be primarily rooted in a financial, money master guided tyrannical system. And if it ends up being the latter, the tyrannical form, then humanity will be enslaved probably for the rest of its existence in one way, shape, or form, because it won't be possible to revolt against that, because it will be global at that point, and there will be a powerful sort of military mechanism or system that will be in place at that point, and it won't be humans. It'll more than likely be robots that'll be administering that. So it's very bleak in that direction, and there's a lot of evidence to show that that's where they're trying to go with this, in terms of DARPA creating these robots and a lot of the stuff. So, but I don't want to be negative or what. I don't want to be too negative in terms of this. I just want people to be aware of the fact that that's happening, mm-hmm. because it's important that people understand that the reality is taking place. But the other end of the spectrum is that we wake up to this and take power in ourselves and put that power into the society and into the culture, and ultimately create the level 1 civilization that's based off of democracy and participatory democracy and the egalitarianism and so forth. That is going to be determined by really us, the people who are communicating to the masses of people around us. And presently we're in a level 0 civilization, but we're on the cusp of a level 1 civilization. So it's very important that we recognize that this is taking place at this time.
Yeah, could you just really quickly describe exactly what is the Type 0 civilization compared to the Type 1 civilization?
This idea is developed primarily by Michio Kaku, and see, like my definition of a level 0 civilization is different from his and level 1 as well. But his definition is basically how they extract the energy. In a level 1 civilization, it's extracted by the ambient planet itself. You're getting energy from the planet, and it's not from a level 0 civilization gets it from fossil fuels. And it's not an efficient extraction of energy. It's very inefficient. And because of that, they're very limited in their civilization, in their capabilities of doing incredible things and going and, you know, for instance, putting like ships and stuff into space and going on to different planets and terraforming other planets. That's a level 1 civilization to level 2 civilization. And so it's something that we haven't even gotten to the level 1 civilization level yet, which really would be basically Tesla type technology. A level one civilization uses the kind of technology that Tesla was talking about, which is just extracting energy from the ambient ether just around us at all times. I mean, there's an incredible amount of energy just in the environment around us. There's a lot of potential energy, but we don't know how to extract it because really we don't have the perspective of what the universe is and how it works, how it functions.
Yeah.
So that's sort of how he defines it in terms of energy extraction and communication and several other kind of factors.
Yeah. So I think pretty much the audience is saying, yes, we do want to go from Type 0 to Type 1. We don't want to be enslaved. We want to be free and sovereign.
Right.
And so I think this takes us to your Pentivium. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And so the Pentivium is sort of your own sort of philosophy that tells us how we can make this transition from Type 0 to Type 1?
Well, it's less about a philosophy of how we can go about, you know, creating it is creating a new culture, I guess. It's not so much philosophical as it is sort of a kind of approach to life. It is an art to living. And it's the Pentivium is an extension of the classical liberal arts, which were the Trivium and Quadrivium, which the Trivium is just grammar, logic, and rhetoric. And that is, at that point, grammar is just the symbols and code symbols of, you know, vocabulary and how they all come together to make language, basically. So it's essentially just teaching children how to, you know, speak appropriately and how to use information in such a way that they can understand it. And then logic is sort of an interpretive approach to language and to communication so that you can understand and also not be convinced of something that's not true. You know, it's a sort of a questioning and an approach to interaction that gives you the ability to essentially decipher what is true and what isn't. And then rhetoric is the communication of an idea to another person such that that other person will understand what you're saying. And so it's kind of like ingestion. You're taking in information, grammar. Logic is digestion, where you're processing that information. And then rhetoric is sort of exertion, or expression of that information out to the world. And so the Trivium is very important in just critical thinking and the ability to understand and ability to really interpret the world around you. And then the Quadrivium is math, geometry, music, and astronomy. And by the time that you've gone through that process of the Quadrivium, you can understand the world around you and sort of be a master of your own realm, in a sense, superficially, that is, in terms of the world around you, not inwardly. And the Pentivium is designed to have that inward aspect of our learning, to self-mastery. Really is the purpose of the Pentivium, which is more for adults than it is for children, which is what the trivium and quadrivium more or less were for. And this pentivium idea is rooted in the really the study of, and really the study of yourself, but also of the world around us in a more spiritual way, I guess you could say. And it goes in 5 stages, as pentivium would suggest. It's a 5-stage process that really just mimics the experience that I have had, and that, really anybody who has had that has gone through the spiritual process. First, you go into a state of purification, which would be something like meditation or medicinal therapy, and really any kind of therapy, basically to sort of deconstruct the cultural boundaries that have been constructed in ourselves by living in this kind of sick culture that we've been living in. And I don't want to poo-poo our culture too much, because there are good aspects of it, but at the same time, there's a lot of negativity in our culture that it's important that people become aware of that, and then also in becoming aware of that, dissolve a lot of the negativity and a lot of the misconceptions about who and what we are. Because we're told very simply that we're all materialistic sacks of electric meat. And this is not the case. It's something that we've discovered empirically, so that we are actually much less physical beings than we are a sort of energetic, and even less than that. I mean, it's sort of, consciousness is something that's immaterial. We have this idea that consciousness is a product of the mammalian brain somehow, when in actual fact, consciousness is a force of nature which is being received by the brain in the same way that information is received by our television sets. Wow. So it's something that is very much more kind of metaphysical in a sense than what we give it credit for. And because we've been persuaded to think that it's materialistic, that it's created by the brain, we've also been convinced that what we are is like I said, a sack of meat, a sack of electric meat. And when we are convinced of that, what meaning could we possibly have as beings other than to consume and to just live in this kind of selfish, egotistical lifestyle? Yeah. So that first stage is really about encountering and understanding the true nature of ourselves. And one of the things that can help us to do that is medicinal plants like cannabis, psilocybin mushrooms, ayahuasca, and some other kind. There are probably other forms that I'm not mentioning here, but those are the ones that are really sort of that I focus on. And the other thing is things like isolation tanks and meditation and all these other kind of approaches are important in that purification process and in the therapeutic kind of quality of that.
Yeah, love meditation. And
yeah.
While you were talking about the consciousness, there's a quote that people around this project, this community say. It's we're not human beings having a spiritual experience. Right. We're spiritual beings having a human experience.
Right. And this is something that it's funny because as I've gone along my journey, it's very interesting to end up hearing people having these quotes. These quotes that really are. It just reaffirms the things that I've that we experienced in a real way. It's like I knew that basically after I had that experience of ego death, and I didn't have ways to articulate that until years later. And then now I'm experiencing people having, these very similar kind of experiences and having these different kinds, of things to say very similar to what I've experienced. And one of the people that really speaks to me today is a guy named Tom Campbell, who's he wrote a book called My Big Toe. Toe stands for Theory of Everything.
Yeah.
And so it's my big theory of everything.
Wow.
And I highly suggest people who are listening to this that they look into Tom Campbell and My Big Toe. He has a YouTube channel, and he regularly updates that with interviews that he has about his subject, which I think is extraordinarily important to the idea that we are spiritual beings having a human experience.
Yeah, exactly.
It's his perspective is very scientific, but also spiritual in a way that's very different from a lot of other people that I've heard speak on the subject. So,
yeah, I'm
something I
definitely
highly
glad that
suggest.
you brought him up. I listened to just a short interview with him on a podcast just because I was interested in the theory of everything, and I looked into it, and he was one of the big names that came up. So, would definitely love to get him on here to talk about his big toe.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
And so the purification process in the Pentivium then goes to sort of a state of you're open-minded once you've gone through this purification process long enough. And the thing about that is once you get open-minded, you're still it's vital to be still skeptical at the same time, not to have your mind so open that your brains fall out.
Yeah.
You know, it's very important to still remain sort of skeptical, but not so skeptical that you can't be open-minded to new ideas and to new approaches to life. But so the idea is that once you become open-minded enough, you're capable of actually studying different perspectives of reality from different spiritual teachers and philosophers that before you would have been incapable, really, of just being able to hear them out in a sense, you know.
Yeah.
So this second stage is consolidation, I call it, or just study of the various spiritual teachings of the past, basically. And that can range from whatever speaks to you. It really this is an approach that is aperspectival, meaning that it doesn't have a perspective that it's leaning on or relying upon to get it to where you're going. It's not a Christian, a Hindu, a Buddhist, or any of those kind of perspectives. It doesn't rely on any perspective to get you to the point of self-mastery. So it's something where you can study whatever appeals to you, and maybe even stuff that doesn't appeal to you, but just seems maybe like it's a good idea. Other people may suggest or something like that.
Yeah.
And so this second stage is just a stage of studying the esoteric and occult or hidden teachings throughout the ages, and looking at it from this sort of perspective of open-mindedness and of it, I am not this person. I am a spiritual being having a personal experience, kind of thing. You know, It's not about having the perspective of, oh well, I don't believe this, so it must not be true. So it's looking into things with an open mind, and then from that point, once you've studied these different sort of esoteric or occult or just spiritual teachings, you then go to an exertion stage where you're actually exerting what you've learned. So, for instance, if you're learning about, in these texts, about changing your perspective, becoming more empathetic, practicing love, and so forth, that's what you're doing in this third stage, is you're actually practicing what is being taught in these texts. And it could also be an exertion in the sense of encountering the profound. So, for instance, if for me the profound is being charitable to the poor, that's what I'm doing. Or if it is experiencing something like a near-death kind of like a close call kind of experience, skydiving or whatever the profound is to you, it's the exertion stage. The third stage is about getting that experience and changing our thoughts, habits, and approaches to different experiences, changing those in order to change our experience and in order to then change our awareness and all these different kinds of the human qualities of our own, the qualia, the felt experience of the moment to moment. And so it's kind of evolving our consciousness and growing our consciousness from that point. And from there, we then go to the fourth stage, which is just to have a balance between these previous stages, to find a balance between studying and exerting what we've learned, and as well as having a state of balance and purification among those two other stages. And so this finding balance is in a sense finding a state of self-mastery, mastering our self-evolution and coming to a point of really fundamentally understanding who and what we are. And once we've come to that state of self-understanding, self-mastery, the final stage of the Pentivium is play.
I like that.
Yeah, and
I want to play. I like playing.
This right. We all love, and the thing is, this kind of comes full circle, because as children, the most important thing for our growth and for our evolution as beings is play.
Yep.
Play is vital to psychological, spiritual growth in adulthood as well as in childhood. And this isn't to say that we should just goof off all the time. What this play indicates is being our own cause. Being our own cause in the effects of our environment and our world. Instead of being caused upon, instead of us being just living with our existence being an effect of somebody else's cause, we are essentially coming to a point where we are causing our own reality, creating our own reality in a co-creating kind of cooperative sense. Of course, an individual can't create their own reality unless you're God, in a sense. It's one thing where we are being our own movers, our own sort of creators.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, a very important aspect of something that we've lost along the way in our own lives as modernity has sort of taken hold, is that we've lost sight of what it means to play. And it also does mean to have fun and to, create happiness for ourselves, of course. But it is important to recognize that this is also a state of, there's a seriousness to play sometimes, and that also should be recognized, that this is a sort of a stage of manifestation and creation of something more than just our own sort of pleasure.
Yeah, wow. I absolutely love that. And the way you explained it was very, very, well said. Definitely well said. And,
Thank you.
And I really like that. So, man, it's been a really amazing interview. We're coming up to the end of the interview here.
Sure.
And where can people find out more about you and find out more about this Pentivium?
Well, I wrote this as an article. Well, the Pentivium is included in an article that I wrote for the Green Revolution, which is a School of Living publication. And the School of Living has a website, sol.org, I believe. But if you just look up the School of Living, it is a nonprofit organization that's out of it's a sort of tri-state kind of organization that they're community building. They do intentional communities and stuff like that. And I wrote it for the Green Revolution, which is their publication, and it is it's edition number 72, number 2, and that can be found on the internet for free in their education or publications section on their website. But I also have it on scribe.com, and I think I have a link. Am I right?
Yeah,
on your website.
Yep.
So that should also be on my my scribe.com account as well. And I think also on the Quora website too. And if people want to basically have a conversation with me or any of that kind of stuff, find out more about me, I'm also on Facebook. So, and I'm very open to conversations on that as well. So yeah, I think that would probably be one of the best ways to get in touch with me or to find out about me, is to just ask, to actually have a conversation with me.
Yeah, great. So yeah, the profile that you're talking about on our website, projectbringmelife.com, you just look under the guides tab, and then Mattrick's name will be right there. It's Mattrick Holbert, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And a lot of his links and stuff will be there, so make sure you check that out.
I think it's actually under Matthew Holbert.
Yeah,
It's
either Matthew or Mattrick. So
Okay.
either one of those, make sure you check it out and check out all of Mattrick's stuff. So I'd just like to thank you again for coming on and sharing this. It's been really amazing interview. I'm really happy with how it's turned out. Is there any closing statements that you would like to make?
I guess if people really have this in their mindset of creating this new culture, there's nothing more important than actually believing that it's possible and acting on that. I think action is an important aspect of we can project these ideas into the world and believe that they're possible, but it takes a lot of it also takes action to manifest them. And so I would just encourage people who are listening to this to get involved in their community in whatever way, shape, or form that seems most appropriate for them, and that they really can be the change that they want to see in the world, and believe in yourself. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Yeah, that's definitely what we're trying to do with Project Bring Me to Life, is to help people wake up and shine on. And I really enjoy how your whole message has just been do something about it and not just let it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. All right, everybody, stay tuned, because we are going to do the card reading and the ending meditation. So stay tuned for that. And thank you, Mattrick, for coming on and sharing your story with us.
Love and appreciation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank
Namaste.
you.
Hey guys, Shantastic Shine here. Do you have any aches or pains, damage from an accident, or maybe just a bad case of nerves? Have you ever looked into crystal energy therapy? If you take a moment to check out my personal website, you'll find an assortment of items all made with Reiki healing energy. They've also been charged and cleansed by the full moon or candlelight. I also make custom crystal prescription pieces to aid personal selection of aches, pains, and other desires. There are crystals ranging from back pain to heartache, pregnancy, and even protection or abundance. Take a peek today at shintasticshine.com. I hope to see you there. Shine on.
Hi guys, it's Shintastic Shine here with this week's Shintastic Shine card reading. I went ahead and flipped the cards already because I'm trying to record without a tripod, so it just makes it a little easier for everyone. I'm using my Psychic Oracle Tarot by John Holland. It's my favorite deck. I use it a lot. And this week's reading is really just kind of flowing from last week's reading, where we had the memories of love and the emotional loss that was happening, and a lot of uneasy emotions have been arising for so many people, losing loved ones and starting new business ventures and projects, and there's a lot of things happening with the energy, and I actually kind of miss doing the energy forecast because I feel like it helps the card readings make more sense for you guys. So I apologize that we need to get back on that. But as far as the card readings, this week it's the emotions card is coming to show us that we all are experiencing this feeling of losing someone or something that we were emotionally attached to. And it's really important for us to honor those feelings, and we need to be aware of the fact that only by loving and healing and letting go of the past can we really continue on our journey that's going to help us move forward. The suffering that's associated with these feelings delivers this profound wisdom and knowledge for our souls that our gifts and talents and abilities are here to help us get through that. Also, your joy and sorrow will just not only make up who you really are, but better yet, help you figure out who you're going to become. So know that all these feelings and emotions are happening for a reason. And we have to kind of let them flow out of us, because if not, we're all going to start getting sick. And it's specific times of the year that we really start reminiscing and thinking about things, and we got the season change happening, and many of us are coming down with colds and pneumonia and headaches and migraines, and we have to release what's holding us back and holding us in those kind of feelings so that we don't get sick and we just keep moving forward, because fall's coming and winter's coming and there's nothing we can do about it. So it's important for us to let go and move forward. Which brings us to the wisdom card. Sorry, I'm a little bouncy on the camera. There we go. And the wisdom card really is here to show us that when the student's ready, that the teacher will appear. So it's here to show us and illustrate that there's a spiritual teacher here that are influencing our lives. And many people have somebody that inspires them and really wants to motivate them and gives them wise words and likes to put their 2 cents in. So when we're willing to let those people come help us, they're going to help us get through that emotional loss, and to use those feelings and those emotions and all of those experiences that we've all been going through. They're going to use their wisdom to help us move forward. And by doing so, they're going to lead you to a material harvest. And this is happening for the collective as a whole, the collective consciousness. And that's how all these readings that I do every week really work, is it's a mutual feeling that is running through the conscious collective and just making these strange series of events happen for so many people all at once. So know that one of the laws of the universe is what you sow is what you reap. And the material harvest card is really illustrating that, and it's saying that what you're going to get back right now is what you rightly deserve. So that could be bad, that could be good. For many of us that try to help the world and do the best thing that we can, that's a good thing. And just know that you've really done the hard work recently, and everyone's seeds are starting to really sprout. And so many readings that I've done recently have been about the seeds that they've planted earlier in the year just sprouting and really showing the hard work has been for a reason. So though you may feel exhausted right now, I feel like we all do, know that it's for good reason. You've been doing a lot, and we're about to see all of that materialize. The number 9 also means endings. And not that the good fortune necessarily stops because we've planted these seeds and now we're harvesting and all of that stuff, but it's a time to allow yourself to celebrate the completion of projects and finish up and just really gather yourself so that you can take the perfect time and look ahead and use the wisdom you've gained from this current cycle to think about what else you want to achieve in the next chapter. So really consider some smart investments and ideas and show your potential, and congratulate yourself on your success and your harvest, and maybe take yourself out on a date or a friend out for lunch and just reminisce on all the hard work you've put in the past few months, and take a time for you. Get through that releasing of the emotional pain that is now coming up, because it's time to move to the next chapter. We all have those moments in our life where we start thinking about the what was and what could have been different of the current situation when you start moving forward. But it's okay to let that go and to just learn the lessons from it. So yeah, it's been a very emotional card reading, and I hope that it's helped you in some way, and shine on.
Hello, and welcome to another 2-minute meditation. For this 2-minute meditation, we are going to listen to ourselves. So sit back, relax, and close your eyes. Begin to become aware of your breathing. Notice as you inhale your chest begins to fill with air, your lungs are filling with air. And as you exhale, your chest is falling, you're squeezing your lungs. And do this a few more times, and try to lengthen and deepen your breath each time. And now begin to listen to yourself. Tell yourself that you have your full attention. Ask yourself, what do you need to tell me right now? Our lives are so busy that we hardly ever give ourselves a chance to listen to ourselves, because our bodies, our minds, our emotions are always trying to tell us something. And once we open ourselves up to listening, we can deliver our messages to ourselves. So ask again and allow yourself to listen. What do I have to tell myself right now? You can begin to wiggle your toes and wiggle your fingers now. At your own pace, open your eyes. Thank you for joining me for this 2-minute meditation. Find more at csclawson.wordpress.com. Thanks, and have a great week.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to Project Bring Me to Life. I hope this episode inspired you in some way. After the show, take a moment and share us on your favorite social media, be it Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Thanks in advance. Stay awake and shine on always.
Yeah.